Hello, my name is Danny Henson, and I'm a missionary pilot that has been working for the last 6 years in the Philippines. But for the last 8 years, I've studied the religion of Islam. This morning, we'd like to start our first topic with the children of the East from the Old Testament. So I'm going to share some scriptures with you that describe the origins of Islam from the Bible's perspective. If you notice this first slide, you see a timeline. One of them is the 2300-year timeline that's very popular to Seventh-day Adventists. The bottom line, the purple in color, is an interesting timeline that I discovered. It was originally in the 1808 Bible Readings for the Home. Now, I borrowed this prophecy chart courtesy of Stephen Dickey, so I'd like to give him an acknowledgement for providing this to me this morning. You'll notice that the timeline has from starting with Abraham down to the second coming of Jesus Christ. And you'll notice that the names are interestingly different because they are the names or the titles given to the prophets in the Quran. You also notice Muhammad's name is in the timeline. I found this interesting. This is part of our Adventist history, that this would be in the 1808 Bible Readings for the Home book that we used to use to do Bible work door to door. So as you can see, we've always understood that Islam, or the children of the East, have had a role in the Bible prophecies. But maybe you remember a story of a man named Abram. This is where we'll begin our study this morning. In Genesis chapter 15, it says that Abram said, "Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is my heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he shall come forth out of thine own bowels, shall be thine heir." So Abraham's promised a son that would come forth from his own bowels. And it says that in the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, "Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates." Now this is an interesting promise that God provides to Abram, because I want you to notice on the map here that the land provided to Abram begins in the southern portions of Turkey and extends down through the Saudi Arabian Peninsula into North Africa. This is a pretty large swipe of land that Abram is promised by God. Now, Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarah said unto Abram, "Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go into my maid, so it might be that we may obtain children by her." And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarai. Notice that in this particular conversation, you don't see any prayer. This is maybe the first church board meeting where there's no discussion with God recorded in Scripture. This was a decision made between Abram and Sarai alone to go in and to take matters into their own hands. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband, Abram, to be his wife. Now I want you to notice, this is an important point, especially in discussions with Muslims. Hagar is being recognized in this verse as a wife, not simply a maid working in the home, but that because of the relationship that her and Abram had, the Bible recognizes her as a wife. And he went into Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Now, this is why we do not encourage polygamy today. We recognize that having mixed marriages, having more than one relationship inside of a home can create quite a bit of conflict. And this was Abram's experience. The two wives became contentious, and Sarai said unto Abram, "My wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between me and thee." But Abraham spoke with Sarai, and behold, it's thy maid. She's in your hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. Now, the story gets very interesting at this point because we have the appearance of a very special angel for the first time in recorded history. The angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain on the way to Shur. Now, the angel of the Lord we'll discuss possibly or highlight later in a different discussion, but this is a very special angel, and you'll discover why. And he said to Hagar, Sarai's maid, Whence comest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. See, this angel was very interested in what was going to happen to Hagar. He was following her, and this conversation takes place, trying to discover what Hagar has planned to do as a reaction to her harsh treatment. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself into her hand. I find this verse very interesting, an interesting verse in the Bible, because here for the first time you have a woman fleeing from another woman into the wilderness, and the angel of the Lord here is commanding this woman to return and to submit. Now, those of you that are students of Bible prophecy would probably recognize that a woman is often used to represent a church in Bible prophecy. Now, I'm not suggesting that this story is a prophecy, but I would suggest that there might be some dual application. The Bible tells us that these were recorded on our behalf for the sake of those in who the end of the world has come. So these stories are to benefit you and I today. And we recognize here two women in conflict, one of them fleeing from the other, and the angel of the Lord here commanding the one to submit to the other. And this is interesting given the fact that she is the mother of the Arab people, the origin of Islam, and the word submit is being used in this verse. Given that Islam is the religion of submission to Allah, I find it interesting that the Bible would record this story with these details. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for a multitude. Here Hagar and her child are promised to become a great multitude, that her seed would be blessed by God. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. This is the meaning of the name Ishmael. God hears. Okay, and this is the first recorded instance in Scripture where a child is actually named by this angel of the Lord, who, as you may have recognized by now, carries some incredible authority with his speech, this being God himself meeting with Hagar in the wilderness. So for the first time in history, a child is being named by God in Scripture. His name is Ishmael. The Bible records that Ishmael's descendants and himself would be a wild man. His hand would be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and that he would dwell in the presence of his brethren. We see that this prophecy has certainly come true. These two brothers, or the descendants of these two families, are still living and very much in conflict with each other today. This is the end of part one of Islam and Old Testament, or the children of the East in the Old Testament. Please come back and join us again for part two of the series. Thank you.